Hello, hello, everybody out there in the social media lands. Coming live to you from Elisa Carter Consulting and Annika Herman from Taming the Tech Monster. If you're joining us over on YouTube, thanks for joining us on LinkedIn. Hello, our LinkedIn people, we love you. And also on Facebook. This week we are talking about networking success in 2022. So, good morning, Annika. How are you?
Well, thanks for having me again. Lisa, I'm very well indeed. Always delighted to be here.
I love having you join me for these weekly events as well. And we were just talking a little bit offline about the world of networking and how it has changed since COVID. And we were going to dive into some do's and don'ts when it comes to networking your business. Now, before we dive into do's and don'ts, I think that one of the things that coaches and creators I don't know, are mystified by is like, do I really need to network to grow my business? And absolutely, I would say absolutely positively, yes, you need to network to grow your business. What are your thoughts on that?
No doubt about it. I can't even see a reason why you wouldn't want to, unless you have some ideas that aren't quite, you know, close to the truth, really. Unless you have some thought about what networking is and how it works, that makes it feel kind of awkward. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. If you want nothing to do with people, then having a business is kind of an odd thing to want, right? Because you're going to have to deal with people one way or another. And I think the more people know you, you need those relationships. You're not living in a vacuum. So
Yeah.
if you look at networking as connecting with people, then there's really no way around it.
I agree. And I think the misnomer and kind of where I was going with that is I think a lot of people think social media is going to solve all their problems in their business and being online. And so they don't want to network because they're just like, no, I can just do it all with social media or ads or whatever. And my
That's
experience has been that is not true.
no, not at all, not at all. And I think it's also like actually, I remember a coach did this with me years ago. He basically said to me, "Look, if you're a coach, he made me literally draw three circles on a piece of paper, right? And he said, there's an inner circle, that little circle in the middle. They are the people who know you. They're the people who pick up the phone when you call, right? Then there's the second call. It's almost like LinkedIn connections. And then the second circles, the people who know those people, and the third. And he says the problem with most marketing efforts, and that is your social media, your ads, all of that, like usually aims at the people somewhere beyond the third circle, right? So the problem is, he says, your clients will always come out of that inner circle. And
Yeah.
then in the moment when he said, like, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, and then there was like, oh, but then I looked at my clients. I'm like, well, yeah, they did all come from that inner circle, right? So that's where the disconnect is. So you can't just throw some stuff at people way out there beyond the third circle and expect them to buy from you. So the job is to bring people closer. And I think, that's when networking probably is like that, or in all the shapes it can take. But it's like it's about bringing people closer to that inner circle, right? And that
Right.
requires real connection with real people.
Right. I agree. And then how that grows, I think what people don't realize is when that inner circle grows, you're also growing your um, field of influence quicker because you're growing that circle. Well, all of those people know people. And so then that grows that second and third layer, but those people are more likely to come to you ready to buy because they've been referred by somebody they trust. And so it's the extension of trust. And I think what people are there well, before we do that, let's talk about some things that you've seen that are big fat no's when it comes to networking.
Well, like there's like little. Okay, let me just start with two that are just really jumping at my face because I do host networking events. So I know, it's like, so it is quite funny now. One is, well, people will blast about their business at you. Hi, I'm doing this and I'm helping those people, and like, do you want my shit? Like, in a short, and you go like, holy cow, right? So that there's that. Then there is that, when there's that question, hey, how can I support you? What would be helpful? Oh, I just want clients. And I'm like, you get it all the time. It's like, well, don't ask me for clients. Just ask me for a resource, for a connection, something. But don't just go ask for clients.
Yeah.
And I think number three is what I see all the time is not listening. you know well, when there's this, like, okay, what do you do? And then when nothing comes back, they just dump their stuff on you and then walk away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when it isn't mutual, so they're the three no-nos that I see all the time, that I would definitely recommend not doing.
Yeah. And just to jump off that. So I too not only have done lots of networking, I'm not going to throw any networking organizations under the bus, but not only done all of the organized networking, but have also created my own networking events similar to what you've done. And when I used to do a lot of those in-person networking events, I call them the business card drive by people. And that's who you just said, like, they are just waiting for you to stop talking so they can talk and shove their business card in your face. And I use the example all the time. I'm like, at the end of the night, I had two piles of business cards. One was people that I had conversations with, and one were drive-bys. And guess where the drive-bys went on the way out the door? Into the garbage. Because I was never gonna call them. I wasn't gonna refer them. And there was no point because they didn't want to have a conversation. They just wanted to push their wares, for lack of a better term. And that kind of leads me into you had some really good points there. Like, one, it is about relationship building, and if you're going to do networking, you need to build those relationships. So in the recent past, as in the last week, I've had a couple things happen. And one is I think people are trying to get people back together in person, which I am not opposed to. But what they are running up against is that we now have an entire dimension of people who are like, I don't want to go out and network. I can network across the world online. Like, I have no need to go out and be with people in this local area. Now, that may be the exception to people that have a very local business, like a nail salon or a hair salon or a restaurant. Like, I'm just thinking of those things in your local community. That may be beneficial for you to go to a live networking event. But most people, I think, are in this in between where they're like, I don't really want to go network with people out in the world when I can just be at home, especially if it's after work or it's at lunchtime. That takes too much of my time to drive back and forth. And so I think taking into consideration when you are trying to form those networking groups is like, who are you talking to? What does their schedule look like? Are they the right fit? Um, that was one of the things that I would run into a lot of times when I was networking. It was just like this smorgasbord of people, and they weren't necessarily the people that were going to be the connectors to the right people. And I think that's one of the big misnomers in, like, an organization like BNI. Do you guys have BNI where you are?
I think it's international. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's here in Spain, but I don't. Yeah.
Is that they try to attract people in different categories. Well, a lot of those categories would not become people that would be clients for me per se. And so it's just like, rather than having a smorgasbord of people, is like intentionally networking
Yes.
with people that would bring you clients. And I think people really struggle with that.
Yes.
And um, so where I was going with that is that recently I've had, because I have a lot of exposure in the networking world, because I've done networking events, I have people coming out of the woodwork now that, COVID is sort of on the way out the door, trying to come back and network the way that they did before. And they're like, to the point of hounding me. I have received no less in the last week a text message, 3 Facebook messages, an email message, and a phone call from one person who's like, you, and I was like, this just screams to me
Which
I
part
am
of no don't
desperate
you
for anyone
understand?
to come to this event. And I was like, desperation just breeds more desperation. And so I just wanted to touch on that because I don't think networking is the same as it was prior to COVID. I think the online networking experience is much more adaptable and appreciated by people. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think about in person versus online networking?
I think we're fortunate enough to have the choice now, right? So I think because see, I don't really work locally, so my clients are always across upon one way or another. So for me, online is like the default go to. Now in May, I was at an in-person conference and enjoyed the life out of it, right? So there is a different level of connection to be in the same room with people. So there's no doubt about that. But I think we have the luxury of being discerning about which event justifies the time and whatever, like energy, commitment, money sometimes, to say, well, because I had, like, for that one I had to travel, so I had to kind of get a car and stay overnight, so there was an expense. It took out 2 3 days, so it was basically an investment of that. So and I have to be, so that's the thing, I'm now in a position that I can be discerning. That particular one, oh boy, it was worth every second, right? But I wouldn't want to go every month or every week to some, so it's like you just have the option, and I think what you said was really, I think, the key, that whether it's in person or virtual, almost like, yeah, whatever, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It's not that much. There's a lot of connection online. So it's not that online there is no depth to connection. That's just simply not true. I think what is much more important is to be in a room with the right people. Because I've joined and left networking groups where it was like, oh, it's a lovely bunch of people, but you end up in a breakout room. And I remember the guy that was like this, this lawyer in Australia who specialized in mergers and acquisitions in Australia and Asia, right? So and it was like there was so little crossover other than we're both humans alive on this planet. That was kind of the only thing that we had in common. So the chances that we kind of somehow connect or do something with it, or was so slim. I think it's much more relevant if you choose groups where there's people who, I mean, ideally you want to be in this leveraged space where it's other people who can connect you and who can refer you. So people who solve the problem that your service creates, or who create the problem you solve. So that's your kind of, or if there are potential clients, well, great. But I think it's even more leveraged if you look for communities where there's other people who serve your clients in some different ways.
I agree. And I always call those people the collaborators
Mhm.
because not only will those be the people that would refer you because they're working with the same type of people, but they also become your power partners to fill in the gaps for the things you don't do. And so you may be introduced to them because they do something that is similar to what you do or, serves the same people. But what I have found is that more often than not, connecting with those people, it helps me have a network of people that I trust that I can then put my clients into their hands for things that I don't do. And what I have found is that depending on the age of your business, your discernment skills get more refined. But it feels like newer entrepreneurs and people that are just like starting their businesses, or maybe they've been in business a couple of years, they really struggle with that. They struggle with, like, they don't know who their power partners are, or they don't want to take the time and they just want to throw the net far and wide. And I know I did that. I don't know if you did that.
Oh, well, everybody did it. At some point, everybody did it, right?
But it's such a waste of time and energy because when you don't take the time to do the discernment and actually figure out, one, who it is you're talking to, because it's not everyone, and two, who else would work with those people, you're just throwing it out there and you just spend so much time having one-on-one conversations with people that will never go anywhere. And so, if you take anything from today's episode, it's that take the time to figure out who you serve and who else serves them before you go out and start connecting on social media, before you start putting out advertisements and you're doing your targeting, and before you leave your house or virtually sign on to a networking event, because your time is your most precious and also most expensive asset because you can't get it back. And so, anything you want to add before we?
Well, I want to kind of like throw a little spanner in the wheels there
Okay.
because I don't think it's that strictly sequential because I think you cannot nail your positioning, your message without the feedback of other people. So I quite often say to people, like, you're not quite sure, like this sounds good to me, it sounds waffly to me, like it sounds good to you, sounds waffly to me. Well, go to a networking event, try it out and see the reaction you get. So I don't think you can nail your positioning, your message, your target audience. I don't think you can nail it first and then go speak to people. Like I think they kind of intertwine. So I think wouldn't be
Yeah.
quite as strict about that, but in essence, it's true. Like I think if you go and network before you really have your message dialed in, I would say don't expect an avalanche of clients from it, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And on that, just as a tangent, I would say the other thing is that I don't know that your messaging has ever evolved to never having to do it again, because your business is ever evolving. And
Yeah,
so, with that in mind, your networking is going to evolve too as your business grows.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
all right. Well, that's all I have for today. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's just about being more relaxed about it. Like, what if you replace the word networking with connecting with people?
I love that. Yep.
And then just look at the whole scene again and see what it feels like now.
Yeah. And how would you have a conversation with someone that you are connecting with versus networking?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been This Not That, your marketing news for the week. We will be back next week, Tuesday at same time, same station. And in the meantime, if you have comments, questions, or input, leave those below. And we will, if you have a question specifically, we will take those into account and you could be featured on an upcoming episode. So take care, stay safe, and be well.
See you soon.